The table was set perfectly. Crystal glasses caught the dining room light, casting tiny rainbows across the white tablecloth. I'd spent an hour making sure everything looked right, the good china, the silver we'd gotten as wedding gifts, even fresh flowers from the garden. Bree always noticed details like that, though lately she'd been too distracted to appreciate much of anything I did. My name is Kai Dornell, and I'm a cabinet maker. Not the kind who slaps together kitchen cabinets from particle board, but the kind who builds custom furniture for people with more money than sense. It's good work, honest work, and it pays well enough to keep us comfortable in our lakeside house here in Millbrook, Maine. But comfort wasn't enough for Bree anymore. She walked into the dining room wearing that black dress, the one that cost more than most people make in a week. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a way that showed off her neck, and she'd spent extra time on her makeup, all for a quiet dinner at home with her husband, she'd said. "This looks lovely," she said, though her voice had that distant quality it had carried for months. She sat down across from me, checking her phone before placing it face down beside her plate. "I thought we should talk," I said, pouring wine into her glass. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Inside, my heart was hammering like a woodpecker on oak. "About what?" She took a sip of wine, then another. The Pinot Noir was her favorite, a bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. This qualified, though not in the way she might expect. "About us. About where we stand." I cut into my steak, watching her face. "You've seemed distant lately. All those business trips, the late nights at the office." Bree shrugged, twirling pasta around her fork. "The agency is expanding. Laurel and I are handling 3 new accounts. You know how demanding clients can be." Laurel was her best friend and business partner at their boutique marketing firm. They'd started it together 5 years ago, building it from nothing into something respectable. I'd been proud of her then, proud of what we were building together. Right, the clients. I reached beside my chair and pulled out a black folder, setting it on the table between us. "Speaking of demanding," her fork paused halfway to her mouth. "What's that?" "Open it." She set down her fork and reached for the folder with fingers that weren't quite steady. Inside were 8x10 photographs, printed on high-quality paper. The first one showed her walking into the Lakeshore Motel with a tall man in an expensive suit. The timestamp read 3 days ago, 2:17 p.m. The color drained from her face, but she kept looking. The second photo showed them kissing beside a silver BMW. The third showed her leaving the motel 2 hours later, hair mussed, lipstick gone. "Kai, I can explain. Can you?" I took another bite of steak, chewing slowly. "Because I'm really curious to hear this explanation." She flipped through the remaining photos. There were more from different days, different angles, all time-stamped, all crystal clear. The man was Trent Ardell, a real estate developer who'd made a fortune buying lakefront property and turning it into luxury condos. He was married, had 2 kids, and drove that BMW like it was a rocket ship. "It's not what it looks like," she said, the words coming out in a rush. "We were discussing a potential partnership. His company needs marketing services, and at a motel? We wanted privacy, somewhere we wouldn't be interrupted by." I held up my hand, and she stopped talking. From my other side, I pulled out a small digital recorder and set it on the table. I pressed play. Her voice came through the speaker, tinny but unmistakable. "My husband doesn't understand me. He's content with his little workshop, his little life. But I want more, Trent. I deserve more." Trent's voice followed. "You do deserve more. And when this property deal goes through, we'll have plenty of money to start fresh. Just you and me? What about your wife? What about her? She's got her own money. She'll be fine." I pressed stop. Bree was staring at the recorder like it might explode. "Funny thing about motel rooms," I said conversationally. "The walls are thin, and the windows don't seal properly. Amazing what you can pick up with the right equipment if you know what you're doing. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Military training has its benefits. I'd learned a lot about surveillance during my tours overseas, skills that translated surprisingly well to civilian life. Not that I'd ever planned to use them on my wife. Kai, please, let me explain. You said there was a line of men waiting for you. The words came out harder than I'd intended. Last week, when we were arguing about money, you said if I didn't appreciate you, there was a line of men who would. She flinched. I was angry. I didn't mean... Turns out you were right. There is a line. But it's a pretty short line, isn't it? Just one man, and he's married to someone else. Bree pushed back from the table, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I won't sit here and be humiliated. Sit down. Something in my voice made her freeze halfway to standing. I hadn't raised it, hadn't shouted, but 20 years of marriage teaches you which tone means business. She sat. We're not done yet. I reached into the folder and pulled out a bank statement. Recognize this? Her face went white again. The statement showed a loan application for $50,000 using our house as collateral. Her signature was at the bottom, along with a forged version of mine. You can't prove I forged that, she said, but her voice was barely a whisper. Actually, I can. I had a handwriting expert analyze it yesterday. Turns out you're not as good at forgery as you think. I folded the statement and put it back in the folder. The bank was very interested to learn about this. They've frozen the loan pending investigation. Bree's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I saw her face crumble. That's probably Trent, I said, wondering why his investment money isn't coming through. She grabbed the phone, her fingers flying over the screen. I watched her type. Delete, type again. Finally, she threw it down on the table. You've ruined everything, she hissed. Years of planning, of building something real. Something real, I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to me. You mean your affair? Your plan to steal our house to finance your boyfriend's business deals? It wasn't stealing, it was investing in our future. Whose future? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you were planning a future without me. She stood up again, this time making it all the way to her feet. I want a divorce. I figured you might. I pulled out another piece of paper. Divorce papers. Already filed. You'll be served officially tomorrow, but I thought you might want a heads up. Her mouth fell open. You can't. We need to discuss this. Work things out. Work what out? The part where you've been screwing another man for 6 months? The part where you tried to steal our house? Or the part where you've been lying to my face every single day? Kai, please. Please what? Please pretend I didn't see the photos? Please pretend I didn't hear you planning to leave me for a married man who's using you for your money? She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. I love him. No, you don't. You love what you think he represents. Money, status, excitement. But you don't love him? Because if you did, you wouldn't have tried to steal from me to give to him. You'd have left me first, done this honestly. I was trying to protect you. From what? The truth? Too late for that. Bree grabbed her purse from the counter and headed for the door. This isn't over. Yes, it is. She paused with her hand on the doorknob. You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what you've started. Actually, I do. I've had 3 months to plan this out, Bree. 3 months since I first suspected, 2 months since I confirmed it, and 1 month since I decided what to do about it. This isn't the beginning of anything. It's the end. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I heard her car start, then the squeal of tires on asphalt as she tore out of the driveway. I sat alone at the dining room table, looking at the ruins of our marriage spread out in photographs and documents. The steak was getting cold, but I wasn't hungry anymore. My phone rang. Big Joe's name appeared on the screen. It's done? He asked without preamble. It's done. How'd she take it? About like you'd expect. She's probably calling him right now. You ready for phase 2? I looked around the house we'd shared for 15 years. The furniture I'd built by hand, the walls we'd painted together, the life we'd constructed piece by piece. All of it felt hollow now, like a movie set waiting to be struck. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. The police arrived at 7:30 the next morning. I was in my workshop sanding a cherry wood dresser for a client in Portland when I heard the car doors slam. Through the window, I watched 2 officers walk up the front steps. Detective Morrow, who I knew from around town, and a younger officer whose name I couldn't remember. I set down my sandpaper and walked to the house, taking my time. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and lake water. It would have been a beautiful day under different circumstances. Morning, Detective, I said, opening the front door before they could knock. Kai. Morrow was a thin man in his 50s, with gray hair and tired eyes. We need to talk. About what? Your wife filed a complaint. Says you threatened her. I stepped aside to let them in. Coffee? This isn't a social call. Right. Well, what exactly am I supposed to have threatened her with? The younger officer consulted his notepad. According to Mrs. Dornell, you sent her threatening text messages last night after she left the house. She says you told her you'd make her pay for leaving you. I pulled out my phone and handed it to Detective Morrow. Check my text history, check my call log, check anything you want. He scrolled through the messages, frowning. There's nothing here. That's because I didn't send any threatening texts. Haven't called her either. She showed us screenshots, the younger officer said. Clear as day. Screenshots can be faked. Did you check the phone records? Morrow's frown deepened. We'll need to do that. While you're at it, you might want to check the security cameras. I pointed to the small camera mounted under the eaves of the house. Motion activated, records everything. If I sent threatening messages, there should be footage of me doing it. You have security footage from last night? I have security footage from the last 6 months. Want to see? 20 minutes later, we were sitting in my living room watching high-definition video on my laptop. The footage showed Bree leaving the house at 8:43 p.m., tires squealing as she drove away. It showed me cleaning up the dinner dishes, washing them by hand, putting them away. It showed me going to my workshop at 9:15 p.m. and staying there until almost midnight, working on the dresser. At no point did it show me using my phone to send threatening messages. Interesting, Detective Morrow said. Gets better. Check this out. I fast-forwarded to 11:30 p.m. The camera showed Bree's car returning, parking at the end of the driveway with the lights off. She sat in the car for several minutes, the interior light on, clearly using her phone. Then she drove away again. She came back? Looks like it, right around the time those threatening texts were supposedly sent. The younger officer was taking notes furiously. So you're saying she sent the texts to herself? I'm not saying anything. I'm just showing you what happened. Detective Morrow closed the laptop. We'll need copies of this footage. Already burned to disk. There's a copy for you, and one for my attorney. You have an attorney? As of yesterday, yes. Clara Dornell, out of Portland. She's my sister. It wasn't the whole truth, just a minor falsehood. Clara and I hadn't spoken in 5 years because of a family dispute, though I had reached out to her yesterday. Family ties still hold strong, especially when a shared sense of payback is at stake. After the police left, I called Big Joe. How'd it go? He asked. Like we planned. They bought it. Good. Phase 2 is ready when you are. Big Joe Kowalski ran a towing and auto repair business on the other side of town. We'd served together in Afghanistan, back when we were young and stupid enough to think we could save the world. He was the kind of friend who'd help you move a body without asking questions, though fortunately it had never come to that. What about the car? Repo paperwork is filed. Turns out your wife missed 3 payments on that fancy BMW. Amazing how these things slip through the cracks. That was another small lie. Bree's car payments were current, but Big Joe had connections at the finance company. A few phone calls, some creative accounting, and suddenly she was behind on payments that had mysteriously never been processed. When? Tonight. She's staying at the Lakeside Inn, room 237. Car will be gone by morning. I hung up and walked back to my workshop. The cherry dresser wasn't going to finish itself, and I had a reputation to maintain. Besides, working with my hands helped me think, and I had a lot of thinking to do. My phone rang around noon. Bree's name appeared on the screen. Kai, you have to stop this. Stop what? The police, the bank, all of it. This is insane. I don't know what you're talking about. My credit cards aren't working. The bank says all our joint accounts are frozen. That's probably because of the fraudulent loan application. Banks get nervous about things like that. You know, I didn't forge anything. Actually, I know you did. So does the handwriting expert. So does the bank. There was a long pause. What do you want? I want you to tell the truth. About what? About Trent? About the money. About how long you've been planning to leave me. I already told you. You told me lies. Try again. Another pause, longer this time. Fine. Yes. I've been seeing Trent. Yes, we talked about being together, but the loan wasn't for him. It was for me, for us, for our future. What future? You just said you wanted to be with him. I meant maybe we could work things out, you and me. By stealing $50,000 from our house? It wasn't stealing, it was insurance, in case things didn't work out with Trent. I had to admire her honesty, even if it came 3 months too late. So you were hedging your bets? Keep the husband around in case the boyfriend didn't work out. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. You wanted to have your cake and eat it too? But you got greedy, Bree. You tried to take too much. Kai, please. We can fix this. I'll break it off with Trent. We can go to counseling, work through our problems. Our problems? We don't have problems. You have problems. I just have solutions. What's that supposed to mean? It means you made your choice 6 months ago when you started screwing around. Now you get to live with the consequences. You can't destroy my life because I made a mistake. I'm not destroying your life. You did that all by yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. She hung up on me. That evening, I drove to the Lakeside Inn and parked across the street. At 2:17 a.m., Big Joe's tow truck pulled into the parking lot. The driver, one of Joe's employees, hooked up Bree's BMW with practiced efficiency. The whole operation took less than 10 minutes. I was back home and in bed by 3 a.m., sleeping better than I had in months. The next morning, my phone rang at 6:30 a.m. "My car is gone," Bree said without preamble. "Gone?" "Stolen. Someone stole my car from the hotel parking lot." "Did you call the police?" "Of course I called the police. They said it wasn't stolen. They said it was repossessed." "Repossessed? That doesn't sound right. Aren't your payments current?" "That's what I thought, but the finance company says I'm 3 months behind." "Huh, that's weird." "Kai, I know you're behind this." "Behind what? I don't work for BMW Financial." "You know what I mean." "Actually, I don't. Are you accusing me of stealing your car?" "I'm accusing you of sabotage." "That's a serious accusation. You should probably talk to a lawyer about that." "I can't afford a lawyer. My credit cards are maxed out, my bank accounts are frozen, and now my car is gone." "Sounds like you're having a run of bad luck." "This isn't luck. This is you." "Prove it." She hung up again. I made coffee and sat on my back deck, watching the sun rise over the lake. It was going to be another beautiful day. Trent Ardell's office was in a glass tower downtown, the kind of building that screamed success from every gleaming surface. His company, Ardell Development, occupied the entire 15th floor. I knew this because I'd done my research, the same way I'd researched everything else about the man who'd been sleeping with my wife. I also knew he drove the silver BMW to work every morning, parked in the executive garage, and left for lunch at exactly 12:30 p.m. Creatures of habit, successful men. It made them predictable. I was waiting by his car when he returned from lunch. "Trent Ardell?" He looked up from his phone, startled. He was taller than he'd appeared in the photographs, maybe 6'2", with the kind of tan that came from golf courses and sailing boats. His suit probably cost more than most people made in a month. "Do I know you?" "Kai Dornell. I think you know my wife." The color drained from his face, but he recovered quickly. "I'm not sure what you're talking about." I pulled out one of the photographs, the one of him kissing Bree outside the Lakeshore Motel. "This refresh your memory?" He glanced around the garage, checking for witnesses. We were alone, except for the security cameras, which I'd already noted were positioned to cover the entrance and exits, not the parking spaces themselves. "Look, Mr. Dornell, I understand you're upset." "Upset?" I stepped closer, and he backed against his car. "My wife has been screwing you for 6 months, and you think I'm upset?" "It's not what you think. Bree and I, we have a business relationship." "Is that what you call it?" I showed him another photograph. "This looks like business to you?" His jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "I want you to stay away from my wife." "That's between Bree and me." "No, it's between you and me. She's still married. That makes you the other man and me the husband. You know how this works." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining the situation. You have 2 choices. Walk away from Bree or deal with the consequences." "What consequences?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. It displayed a contact labeled Mrs. Ardell with a phone number and home address. "Your wife seems like a nice woman. Pretty, too. I looked her up on social media. She posts a lot of pictures of your kids. You leave my family out of this. That's entirely up to you. Walk away from Bree, and your wife never has to know what kind of man she married. Keep seeing her, and I'll make sure she gets copies of every photograph, every recording, every piece of evidence I have." "You recorded us?" "I recorded everything. Amazing what you can pick up with the right equipment." He straightened up, trying to regain some composure. "You can't blackmail me." "I'm not blackmailing you. I'm offering you a choice. Make the right one." "And if I don't?" I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. "Then your wife gets this in tomorrow's mail, along with copies to your business partners, your clients, and anyone else who might be interested in your extracurricular activities." He snatched the envelope from my hands and tore it open. Inside were copies of all the photographs, plus transcripts of the recorded conversations. His hands were shaking as he read. "You're crazy." "No, I'm thorough. There's a difference. Bree won't just disappear because you tell her to. She has feelings for me. Bree has feelings for your money. Big difference." "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? How much have you spent on her so far? The hotel rooms, the dinners, the gifts? How much was she expecting from that loan she tried to take out against my house?" His face went pale again. "What loan?" "The $50,000 loan she applied for using forged documents. She didn't tell you about that?" "I don't know anything about a loan." "Interesting. She told me the money was for you, for some business investment, but you're telling me you don't know anything about it. I never asked her for money. Then what did she need $50,000 for? He stared at the photographs, his jaw working like he was chewing something bitter. She said she wanted to leave you, start fresh. She needed money to make it happen. And you believed her? Why wouldn't I? Because she's been lying to both of us, you idiot. She wasn't planning to leave me for you. She was planning to take my money and disappear. You were just the cover story. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time she talked about your future together? Really talked about it, with specific plans and dates? He didn't answer. She's been stringing you along, Trent, using you for excitement, for validation, for whatever it is she thought she was missing. But she was never going to leave her comfortable life for a married man with 2 kids and a wife who controls half his assets. You don't know Bree like I do. I've been married to her for 20 years. I know exactly who she is. He crumpled the photographs in his fists. This is harassment. This is reality. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I could call the police. And tell them what? That the husband of the woman you're having an affair with showed you photographs of your affair? I'm sure they'd be very sympathetic. I could get a restraining order. Based on what? I haven't threatened you. I haven't touched you. I've simply informed you that your actions have consequences. This is insane. This is what happens when you mess with other people's marriages. You want insane? Keep seeing my wife and find out what I do next. I turned to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Trent, you might want to check your voicemail. Bree's been calling you all morning. Something about her car getting repossessed and her credit cards being canceled. Funny how these things happen all at once, isn't it? I left him standing in the garage, staring at the crumpled photographs in his hands. That evening, I drove to the Lakeshore Motel and rented a room on the 2nd floor with a view of the parking lot. At 7:15 p.m., Bree arrived in a taxi. At 7:22 p.m., Trent arrived in his BMW, parking in the back corner of the lot, where his car wouldn't be visible from the road. I watched through binoculars as they argued beside his car. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in their body language. Bree was gesticulating wildly, pointing back toward town. Trent kept shaking his head, his hands raised in a defensive posture. The argument lasted 20 minutes. Finally, Bree threw something at him, her purse, maybe, or her phone, and stormed toward the motel office. Trent got back in his car and drove away without looking back. I smiled and packed up my binoculars. Phase 3 was ahead of schedule. My phone rang as I was driving home. Clara's name appeared on the screen. "How's it going up there?" she asked. "Better than expected." She's starting to crack. "And him?" "He's realizing he got played. Won't be long now." "You sure about this, Kai? Once you cross certain lines, there's no going back." I crossed the line 6 months ago when I decided to find out why my wife was acting strange. Everything since then has just been following the evidence where it leads. That's not what I mean, and you know it. She made her choice, Clara. Now she gets to live with it. What about you? What kind of person does this make you? I thought about that as I drove through the quiet streets of Millbrook, past the houses where normal people lived, normal lives with normal problems. What kind of person was I becoming? "The kind who doesn't get taken advantage of," I said finally. "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer that matters." Clara sighed. "The divorce papers are ready. I can file them tomorrow if you want." "Not yet. I want her to understand exactly what she's losing first." "And how do you plan to do that?" I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car, looking at the house I'd built with my own hands. Every board, every nail, every coat of paint had been applied with love and hope for the future. Now it felt like a monument to my own stupidity. By taking everything away from her, piece by piece, until all she has left is the truth. Which is? That she destroyed the best thing in her life for a man who was never going to leave his wife for her. You sound like you hate her. I do hate her, but I also loved her, which makes it worse. Kai, I have to go, Clara. Phase 4 starts tomorrow. I hung up and walked into my empty house where the silence was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. The Millbrook Harvest Festival happened every October, transforming the town square into a carnival of local vendors, craft booths, and food trucks. It was the kind of wholesome, small-town event that made tourists feel nostalgic for a simpler time, and it drew crowds from as far away as Portland. It was also the perfect venue for what I had planned. Bree's marketing agency had sponsored the festival for 3 years running, which meant their company banner hung prominently across the main stage. More importantly, it meant Bree would be there, working the crowd, networking with potential clients, playing the role of successful businesswoman. I arrived early, before the vendors finished setting up their booths. The morning air was crisp with the promise of autumn, and the maple trees around the square blazed with red and gold leaves. Under different circumstances, it would have been beautiful. I found Janelle Martinez setting up the marketing agency's information booth near the bandstand. She was Bree's assistant, a quiet woman in her 30s who'd always struck me as more competent than her boss gave her credit for. "Morning, Janelle." She looked up from arranging brochures, startled. "Oh, hi, Kai. I didn't expect to see you here." "Wouldn't miss it. How are things at the office?" Her smile faltered. "They've been challenging lately." "I heard about Bree's suspension. That must be difficult for everyone." "You know about that?" "Small town. Word gets around." She glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned closer. "Between you and me, it's been chaos. Half our clients are asking questions about the loan situation, and Bree's been, well, she's been difficult to work with." "How so?" "Paranoid. Angry. She's convinced someone is sabotaging her, but she won't say who. Yesterday, she accused me of stealing files from her computer." "Were you?" Janelle's eyes widened. "Of course not. I wouldn't. Relax. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just curious about what kind of files she thinks are missing." "Client contracts, mostly. Financial records. She says someone hacked into her system and copied everything." "That's terrible. Any idea who might do something like that?" "She thinks it's you." I tried to look shocked. "Me? I barely know how to check email, let alone hack into computer systems." "That's what I told her, but she's convinced you're behind everything that's been happening to her." "What's been happening to her?" Janelle glanced around again, then lowered her voice. "Her car got repossessed. Her credit cards were canceled. The bank froze her accounts. And now there's talk about criminal charges related to that loan application." "Criminal charges?" "Fraud. Forgery. The bank turned everything over to the district attorney's office." That was news to me, but good news. I'd hoped the bank would take the forgery seriously, but I hadn't expected them to move so quickly. "That's awful," I said. "I had no idea things were so bad." "She's staying at the Lakeside Inn, but she can't afford it much longer. And that man she was seeing—" "What man?" Janelle blushed. "I probably shouldn't say anything." "It's okay. We're getting divorced anyway. I know about Trent. He stopped taking her calls. She's been trying to reach him for 3 days, but he won't answer his phone. Maybe he's busy? Maybe. Or maybe he figured out she was using him." I raised an eyebrow. "Using him how?" "She's been bragging about him for months. How rich he is, how successful, how he's going to take her away from all this. But when her money problem started, she expected him to help. When he didn't, she realized he was just in it for the fun. Something like that." A group of early festival goers wandered past, and Janelle straightened up, putting on her professional smile. "Well, I should get back to work. Are you planning to stick around for the whole festival?" "Wouldn't miss it," I said, "especially the evening program." The festival's evening program featured local musicians, a pie-eating contest, and a slideshow of historical photographs projected on a large screen behind the bandstand. The slideshow was controlled by a laptop connected to the projection system, and the laptop was operated by a volunteer from the Historical Society. That volunteer was Mrs. Eleanor Ricketts, my 70-year-old neighbor who'd been running the historical slideshow for 5 years. She was also the most technologically challenged person I'd ever met, which made her perfect for my purposes. I found her at 4:08 p.m., struggling with the laptop setup. "Need some help, Mrs. Ricketts?" "Oh, Kai, thank goodness. This contraption is acting up again. The pictures won't display properly." I spent 20 minutes troubleshooting the system, which mostly involved clicking the right buttons in the right order. While I worked, I made sure to compliment Mrs. Ricketts on her organizational skills and her dedication to preserving local history. "I don't suppose you'd be willing to help me during the actual presentation?" she asked. "Just in case something goes wrong?" "I'd be happy to." "Wonderful. The slideshow starts at 8 o'clock, right after the pie-eating contest." At 7:45 p.m., I was standing behind the projection screen with Mrs. Ricketts, watching the crowd gather in front of the bandstand. There had to be 300 people there, maybe more. I spotted Bree near the front, talking animatedly with Laurel and a group of potential clients. "Ready when you are," I told Mrs. Ricketts. She nodded and clicked the first slide. A sepia-toned photograph of Millbrook's Main Street circa 1920 appeared on the screen, and the crowd settled down to watch. For the first 10 minutes, everything went according to plan. Mrs. Ricketts narrated the slides while I advanced them at the appropriate moments. We covered the town's founding, the lumber boom of the 1930s, the impact of World War II on the local economy. Then, at slide number 43, I made my move. Instead of advancing to the next historical photograph, I clicked on a different file, one I'd uploaded to the laptop during my troubleshooting session. The screen filled with a high-resolution image of Bree and Trent kissing outside the Lakeshore Motel. The crowd went silent. Mrs. Ricketts gasped and fumbled for the laptop, but I gently moved her aside. "Technical difficulties," I announced into the microphone. "Just give me a moment to fix this." But instead of fixing it, I advanced to the next slide. This one showed Bree entering the motel room, her face clearly visible in the afternoon sunlight. Then another. Trent's BMW parked behind the building. Then another. The two of them leaving the room together, clothes disheveled, hair mussed. The silence stretched for maybe 10 seconds. Then the murmuring started, low at first, then building to a roar of shocked conversation. I could see people pointing at the screen, then looking around for Bree in the crowd. I found her near the front, her face white with horror and rage. Laurel was tugging at her arm, trying to get her to leave, but Bree seemed frozen in place. "Sorry about this, folks," I said into the microphone. "Looks like someone uploaded the wrong files to our system. Let me see if I can get back to the historical photographs." I clicked to the next slide. This one was an audio file, a recording of Bree and Trent's conversation at the motel, complete with subtitles displayed on the screen. Bree: "My husband doesn't suspect anything. He's too busy with his little woodworking projects to pay attention to what I'm doing." Trent: "Good. The last thing we need is a jealous husband making trouble." Bree: "He's not the type to make trouble. He's too passive, too comfortable with his boring little life." Trent: "What about the money?" Bree: "I can get $50,000 from the house. He'll never know until it's too late." The crowd was no longer murmuring. They were shouting, some in outrage, others in amusement. I saw people holding up their phones, recording the audio, taking pictures of the screen. "Technical difficulties," I repeated into the microphone. Bear with us while we sort this out." I let the audio play for another 30 seconds, then switched back to photographs. These were the ones I'd taken of Bree and Trent at different locations around town, the restaurant where they'd had dinner, the park where they'd walked hand in hand, the overlook where they'd watched the sunset together. Finally, I clicked on the last file, a video I'd recorded yesterday of Bree screaming at Trent in the motel parking lot, throwing her purse at his car, calling him names that would have made a sailor blush. The video played for 2 minutes before I finally shut down the projection system. "Sorry about that, everyone," I said into the microphone. "Looks like someone played a prank on us. Let's call it a night and try again next year." The crowd began to disperse, but slowly. People were still talking, still pointing, still taking pictures with their phones. I saw Bree pushing through the crowd, Laurel close behind her, both of them heading for the parking area. Mrs. Ricketts was staring at me with a mixture of horror and admiration. "Kai Dornell," she said quietly. "What have you done?" "I've told the truth, Mrs. Ricketts. Sometimes that's all you can do. That poor woman. That poor woman destroyed her marriage and tried to steal $50,000 from her husband. I'd say she got off easy." Mrs. Ricketts packed up her equipment without another word. I helped her load it into her car, then walked across the square to where Big Joe was waiting by his truck. "How'd it go?" he asked. "See for yourself." I nodded toward the crowd, where people were still clustered in small groups, talking excitedly and checking their phones. "By tomorrow morning, everyone in town will know what she did. And him? He's finished too. Half those people know his wife, know his kids. This won't stay secret." Big Joe grinned. "Remind me never to cheat on my wife." "You don't have a wife?" "Exactly." We stood there for a moment, watching the last of the festival goers drift away into the night. The cleanup crew was already taking down the booths and packing up the sound equipment. By morning, the square would be back to normal, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. The secret was out. The lie was exposed, and there was no taking it back. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "You're going to pay for this." I showed it to Big Joe. "Looks like Phase 5 is about to begin." The confrontation came sooner than I expected. I was in my workshop the next morning, applying the final coat of varnish to the cherry dresser when I heard cars pulling into my driveway. Through the window, I saw Bree's rental car, an economy model that was a far cry from her repossessed BMW, followed by Trent's silver sedan. They'd come together, which was interesting. After last night's public humiliation, I'd expected them to cut ties completely. Instead, they seemed to have decided I was their common enemy. I set down my brush and walked outside to meet them. Bree climbed out of her car looking like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes were red from crying or drinking or both. Trent looked better, but not much. His usually perfect appearance was marred by a day's worth of stubble and a shirt that had seen better days. "You son of a—" Bree started toward me, but Trent caught her arm. "Let me handle this," he said, then turned to face me. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About what you did last night. About how we're going to fix it." I laughed. "Fix it? You think there's a way to fix what you did?" "What we did was private," Bree said, shaking off Trent's restraining hand. "You had no right to humiliate me in front of the entire town." "I had every right. You're my wife. He's your lover. That makes it my business." "We're getting divorced," she said. "What I do with my personal life is none of your concern." "We're getting divorced because of what you did. And your personal life became my concern the moment you tried to steal $50,000 from our house." Trent stepped forward. "About that, we want to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" "We'll disappear. Leave town, start over somewhere else. In exchange, you drop the fraud charges and stop harassing us." "I'm not harassing you. I'm exposing you. There's a difference." "You've made your point," Bree said. "Everyone knows what happened. You've gotten your revenge. Isn't that enough?" "No." "What more do you want?" "I want you to understand what you threw away. I want you to realize that 20 years of marriage meant something, even if it didn't mean anything to you." "It did mean something to me. It meant so much that you were willing to destroy it for a man who won't even leave his wife for you." Trent's face flushed. "That's not... Isn't it? Where's your wife right now, Trent? Does she know you're here?" "My wife is none of your business." "Your wife received a very interesting package yesterday. Photos, recordings, bank records, everything I showed at the festival and more. I'm guessing she had some questions." The color drained from his face. "You didn't." "I did. Along with copies to your business partners, your clients, and your children's school. Amazing how quickly word spreads in a small town." Bree was staring at him. "You said your wife didn't know. You said you were going to tell her after." "After what?" I interrupted. "After he figured out a way to divorce her without losing half his assets. After he found another woman to cheat with. What exactly were you waiting for?" "We were waiting for the right time. There is no right time. There's only what you do and what you don't do. And what you did was destroy 2 marriages for a relationship that was never going to last." Trent pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police. This is harassment, stalking, invasion of privacy. Go ahead, call them. I'm sure they'd love to hear about the fraud charges your girlfriend is facing, or the adultery, or the conspiracy to commit theft. You can't prove conspiracy." "Can't I? I have recordings of you two planning to take money from my house. I have evidence of you helping her hide assets from the divorce proceedings. I have documentation of your affair going back 6 months." "That's not conspiracy. That's conspiracy to commit fraud. And in Maine, that's a felony." Bree was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Kai, please. I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I made mistakes, but this has gone too far." "Too far? You haven't seen too far yet. What's that supposed to mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed them the screen. It displayed a website, the front page of the Millbrook Gazette, the local newspaper. The headline read, "Local Marketing Executive Under Investigation for Fraud." Below it was a photo of Bree leaving the courthouse, looking haggard and defeated. "The story goes live in 1 hour," I said. "Unless, of course, something happens to change my mind." "What do you want?" Trent asked. "I want the truth. All of it. How long has this been going on? Who else knows about it? What other lies have you been telling?" Bree wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. 6 months. It started 6 months ago at a business conference in Portland." "How?" "We were both staying at the same hotel. We met in the bar, started talking, one thing led to another." "And you decided to throw away 20 years of marriage for a one-night stand?" "It wasn't supposed to be a one-night stand. We connected. He understood me in a way you never did." "How did I not understand you?" "You were content with this." She gestured at the house, the workshop, the quiet suburban street. "You never wanted more. You never pushed yourself, never took risks, never dreamed of anything bigger than your little woodworking business." "I dreamed of a life with you. I thought that was enough." "It wasn't enough for me." "So you decided to steal $50,000 and run away with a married man?" "I decided to take control of my life instead of waiting for you to do it for me." Trent was looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Look, this is between you two. I should go—" "You're not going anywhere," I said. "You're part of this. You pursued a married woman, helped her plan to steal from her husband, and made promises you had no intention of keeping." "I never promised her anything." "Didn't you? What about all that talk of starting fresh, of building a new life together?" That was pillow talk. She knew I wasn't going to leave my wife." Bree spun around to stare at him. "What? Come on, Bree. You're a smart woman. You knew this was temporary." "You said you loved me." I said a lot of things. That doesn't mean I meant them. You son of a... This time it was Bree who lunged forward, and this time Trent didn't try to stop her. Her open palm cracked across his face with a sound like a gunshot. He staggered backward, his hand pressed to his cheek. You crazy. Crazy? You used me. You lied to me. You let me destroy my marriage for nothing. I didn't let you do anything. You made your own choices. Based on your lies. Based on what you wanted to hear. I watched this exchange with a mixture of satisfaction and disgust. This was what Bree had thrown away her marriage for. A man who saw her as nothing more than a temporary diversion. Seen enough? I asked. She turned to look at me, her face streaked with tears and rage. You planned this. You knew he would do this. I knew what kind of man he was. The question is, why didn't you? Because I wanted to believe... You wanted to believe that someone would rescue you from your boring life with your boring husband. But nobody was coming to rescue you, Bree. You had to rescue yourself. And instead of doing that honestly, you chose to lie and steal and cheat. I was trying to find happiness. You were trying to find an easy way out, but there is no easy way out. There's only the way forward, and you chose the wrong direction. Trent was backing toward his car. I'm leaving. This is insane. Where are you going? Bree called after him. Home. To my wife. To try to salvage what's left of my real life. What about us? There is no us. There never was. You were a mistake, and I'm done making mistakes. He got in his car and drove away, leaving Bree standing in my driveway like a woman who'd just watched her last hope disappear over the horizon. Satisfied? She asked. Getting there. What happens now? Now you face the consequences of your choices. The fraud charges, the divorce, the public humiliation, all of it. And you? What do you get out of this? I get justice. I get closure. I get to move on with my life, knowing that actions have consequences. You get revenge. I get what I deserve, which is more than you can say. She walked back to her rental car, moving like a woman twice her age. Before getting in, she turned back to look at me one last time. I did love you, Kai. Once. I know. That's what makes this so tragic. She drove away, and I stood alone in my driveway, watching her taillights disappear around the corner. The cherry dresser was waiting in my workshop, half-finished, beautiful in its simplicity and craftsmanship. I had work to do, a life to rebuild, a future to construct from the ruins of my marriage. But first, I had a phone call to make. Clara, it's done. File the divorce papers. Are you sure? I'm sure. Any regrets? I looked at the house I'd built, the life I'd constructed, the dreams I'd nurtured for 20 years. All of it felt different now, lighter somehow, as if a weight I'd been carrying had finally been lifted. No regrets. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. And you? What are you going to do now? I'm going to finish a dresser, then I'm going to start over. Think you can do that? Start over? I'm still breathing, aren't I? That's all you need to start over. I hung up and walked back to my workshop, where the cherry wood gleamed like honey in the afternoon sunlight. There was work to be done, and I was good at work. It was honest, it was real, and it was mine. The line was broken, but I was still standing.